Welcome to this tutorial on creating functional prototypes. We'll be using the Activity Maker template. Now the version of LodeStar, if you go to Help and About, the version is LodeStar 11 Beta Build 22. So you need that or higher or a more recent build. It's really important to update LodeStar so that you have all of the new capabilities. I'll double click on Activity Maker so I can either select it and create project or double click. I'll call this Project Pool Management. What LodeStar will do is create a folder called Pool Management and place all the ingredients in that folder. Now, a functional prototype is essentially what we'll be doing is using very simple graphics, and we're going to help the client visualize our design intent. Our design, our ultimate design is to create a simulation. So you're a community, you're tasked with keeping a community pool clean and, looking as good as it possibly can to attract visitors to the pool, to attract the community to the pool. So this is going to be a simulation, but rather than, making this a full-blown simulation, we're going to be creating a functional prototype that helps somebody visualize what that simulation is actually going to look like and how it's actually going to work. So before we do all that, let's just get accustomed to the LodeStar interface. Now we have, by default, Activity Maker. The very first page is a page of type text. So that's what we have here is we have a page. Now a text type page has an HTML editor, it has a number of other fields. There are a whole variety of page types. Text page is probably the most versatile because later you'll see that we're able to add widgets to this page, activity widgets. But for now, for this first page, we'll give it an ID. It's always important to give your pages IDs. This is our title page. Later on, we can use IDs. If we were to do a branching type of exercise, we can branch to a page by its ID. We can also use the ID in the table of contents or as a resource. Let's go ahead and we'll click on, in our HTML editor, we have a bunch of tools. This tool is the Insert Image tool. We'll click on that. Notice that the interface kind of gives you a suggestion as to what to do next. We're going to get an image. We're going to pull an image in from the hard drive. This is an image of a pool. We could have selected this tool here, which is AI. AI can create an image for us. Now, by default, we have a default ID, so the image kind of has its own social security number, and it comes in with a specific width and height. If we were to simply click on OK, we get an image that's 320 across, but normally what you would do is use a percentage. So for example, if I selected 100%, this image would grow to 100% of its parent container size. Now, and the parent is the viewer. I don't want this. I want a banner image. So I'll click on the image again. Notice the way to edit an image is simply click on it and you get back to its properties. Here what I'll do is crop the image. I'll click on the crop tool, and when I click again on the image, it gives me handles. So I'll go ahead and just kind of define my area. Everything else will be cropped away. Click on crop, and I'll center this and make it into a banner. And there we go. Now the title of my project will be Pool Management. I'll go ahead and select that, and I'll make it into a heading level 1. I think I'll make it 36 points, and I'll hug it to the right. That's all I'm going to do. Again, this is a functional prototype. I could change the color of this page. I could give it a background graphic. I could do a whole lot, but I'm going to keep it simple. Title, Pool Management. Now to create a new page, I'll just use these buttons at the bottom. So this will add a page. It'll remove the current page. This just kind of gives you a little more screen real estate. If I had more than one page, I could move backwards and forwards, and I could also save my pages. I'll go ahead and add a page. Now, this particular page, what I'm going to do with the titles here, no one will see the titles other than me. These titles are just going to suggest to me what is the correct step. What's the thing that we want to do? Now, what we're doing is we're managing a community pool. We're creating a prototype of a simulation. So some of our steps in managing this pool is to clean debris, test the water, raise the pH level, stabilize the pool, which means add cyanuric acid, add chlorine. So there's a number of steps. But before I get into that, I kind of want a representation of a pool. My point earlier about the page ID is once I create a graphic, a crude graphic of pool, and display the steps, this jogs my memory as to, at the current stage, what's the right step. And the very, very first correct step is just to clean the debris from the pool. Okay, great. Let's create our pool. Now for that we can use a scalable vector graphic. So we'll click here and this will give us our scalable vector graphic editor. Now there are the basic shapes, you have a whole variety of categories of shapes. The basic shapes include this here, and that allows me to go ahead and kind of create a cylinder. Now here what I have is, you can see this is highlighted. So I have this, and that changes the fill color of the pool, but I want it to be dark. We could even make it black. And then if I chose this, that changes the stroke color. So you can see we've just changed the stroke color. But I think this is fine. Okay, so we have a fill of one color and a stroke color here. And this is just showing us what the stroke color is. We can also change the stroke, can change its width, and we can change the style of the stroke, but this is good. This is a nice dark black pool that needs to be treated, and that's the point. That's what we're trying to do. What we can do is just create a little bit of a scene here. We don't want to go overboard, but for example, here what I'll do is, oops, this was, by the way, let's go back to select this, and I want my stroke to be a little lighter. I'll click on this rectangle and I want the stroke to be dark, because essentially what I'm doing is just creating a little flag. I'll change my shape. I'll go to the flow chart. So this just allows the client to understand what this graphic is all about. Okay, good. Now I'll click on my text. So click on my text tool here, and I can call this, I'll call this Bayside Pool Selection, and I'll change that text color. So notice what I had to do there. I had to ensure that I'm changing the fill. Um, so rather than the stroke. So I made sure that the fill palette was selected. I can go ahead and even let's select that again, make that a lighter color. Select our tool here, bring that, and then of course I can bring in, this is using a large font, so I can kind of bring that in a little bit and make it bold. And I'm done with that. So Bayside Pool. Okay. The other thing that I want to do is add, let's see, I want to add a symbol that represents a person. So here we have people. I could use this symbol here. I'll use this symbol. And what this will represent is as we're successful, as we clean up the pool, we're going to attract more and more people, and this will be representative of the people that we attract to this pool. So later, when we're actually creating a simulation, we can target this SVG element and clone it. Now the way we do that is SVG elements, they can be given a unique ID. I'm going to call this person. I'll hit enter to commit this ID to that. Now notice when I click here, you can see SVG1 when I click here, SVG3, but when I click back here, we got person. I can also take all of this, I can use my selection tool, and I can group these elements so that they become just become one. So I can adjust that. I could also go into this element, and I could go ahead and I can still edit it, so I could do that, and I can go back into this, and so I still have full control. I can get back to my layer to get outside of the group, get back to the canvas just by selecting that breadcrumb. Okay. Here's the breadcrumb. There we go. So we have the Bayside Pool. This is still, by the way, even though I edited the internal SVG element, it's still being treated as a group. Okay, so we have our flag, we have our person that represents the popularity of the pool, and we have our abysmal pool. And I don't need to do this for the functional prototype, but I could give the pool a unique ID. And later in the simulation, I can change its color on the fly by targeting this SVG element and just writing a simple scripting command that changes the color. But this is a functional prototype, and we're trying to keep things simple. One last thing is, notice that I have some extra canvas here. I could go ahead and click on this tool here, which essentially now fits all the elements. So it basically trims away the canvas outside of the boundaries of the elements. Okay, we're good. I'll click on close this window and save that. So there is my graphic of a pool. This is in order to edit this, if I wanted to edit any part of this, I would not go back up to SVG. I would simply click on the graphic and click on edit, and that gets me back in here so I can go ahead and make the change that I want. Okay. Now the other part to know about this is when I click and look at the properties, I get this default ID, but it's also has a fixed width and height. I'm going to choose 90 because I want this to be responsive. I want this to be able to shrink and grow based on the size of its parent container. So I'll do that and I'll center it. There we go. Now I'll click below. So I'll click below the SVG graphic and I'll add my options. So we're presenting the learner with a set of options. What do you do first? What do you do second? So forth. Now again, I have my HTML editor here and I have this, notice this color is a little different because this is a very, very important tool. This is your insert activity widget tool. And these are all the activity widgets that you can insert onto this page. In our example, we're inserting the button layout. And here's where we'll be able to provide some choices. Now the first choice will be, we'll randomize these by the way. Notice we have random on right here. All these choices are going to be randomized. Clean debris. And the border type will be the roundest border, and we'll say a border size. This, by the way, the border size applies to all the borders. You can individualize the color. So here I'll just keep it the roundest border, and I'll select that for each of these buttons, and just use the default of black. You could put in a hexadecimal value here, or simply use the word red or black or green or blue. I'll just leave it blank. It's black. Now this is a pagination tool. I'm able to add pages of information here. So I'll click on plus. So in this case, it's not pages of information, it's pages of buttons. So I now have the clean debris button, and I'm able to navigate now to the second button, which is going to be test water. I could give this an ID. I won't. I'll make this the roundest border. My next choice is to raise pH. Then I have stabilize pool. I'll just say stabilize. And finally, add chlorine. And I'll explain these choices as we go along, but for each of these, now all of these have a default border size now of 3, but we're just indicating what type of border. It'll be randomized. We have a layout here. Basically, this could be a layout in a row. If you wanted it to wrap, especially if you're doing work that's going to likely be accessed from a smartphone, you do want it to wrap, and I'll show you what that looks like. Or you can make it no wrap or wrap in reverse. I'll keep the width and height auto. But So it'll just automatically adjust the button sizes. But this is one to pay attention to, and we'll come back to this. Okay, and now I have all of my buttons. Let's say that I had forgotten or I wanted to edit one of these buttons. Uh, so let's just say that I want it to say stabilize pool instead of stabilize. Then you simply click on the widget. It gets you back into that pagination tool. And then it always defaults to the first item. So now we need to go to the correct item, which is stabilize. And then we make our edit here and go ahead and commit. Okay, so that's how that works. Now what I'll do is simply clone this page so I don't have to recreate the graphic each time, recreate the buttons. I'll just change what they all do. So we'll go ahead, let's just clone. So I'll duplicate. This page will be ideally test water. And this is just reminding us that this is step two. Step two, the right step is to test water. Again, no one will see this. It's just for us. Okay, this is test water, and then I'll duplicate the page. This will be raise pH. And I'll duplicate the page. This one here will be stabilize. And then finally, we'll duplicate the page, add chlorine, which will get us ultimately, we'll duplicate the page once more, it'll get us to the perfect pool. Terrific. Now let's go ahead and fill in what happens for each of these. So clean debris is the right, this is just jogging our memory. Clean debris is the right decision here, and that'll help guide us as we fill in the feedback for each of these buttons. I'll click on the widget, clean debris. Well, clean debris is the right choice. And what we're going to do is we're going to cause this, if you make the right choice, we're going to cause this to jump to page test water. So that'll take you to the next step, the next page that offers some choices where the right choice is test water. But of course the user doesn't know this, the learner doesn't know this, it's just we do. So okay, the feedback is excellent first step, and then we're going to cause this jump to the page after 3 seconds. So we'll display some feedback, and then after 3 seconds we can go ahead and jump the page. If you're uncomfortable with making this timed, we could say branch when the next button is clicked. But for now, let's just branch automatically after 3 seconds. So it'll first display this feedback. You must have this show feedback selected. If you do this, it won't show the feedback. Again, I can change the font and the size and so forth of the feedback. So jump to page after 3 seconds. Okay. Now all the other steps are kind of they're we want to give them some we want to give them some instructive feedback because they're all the wrong choices. Clean debris was the only right choice. So what we want to do here is, if we're only giving feedback, we want to execute command. We always, one of these has to be selected. So execute command, and what we'll say is clean debris first. And we'll just copy that so we don't have to keep typing it. So we'll go ahead, clean debris, make that 18 point. And we don't have to branch here because we're really not doing anything. We're not really branching at all. And it's the same deal. Execute command, show feedback. We're good. Stabilize pool. No, we want to clean debris first. And finally, no, we don't add chlorine unless we've tested the water. And now, don't ever put anything in here. It's always showed feedback here. What this is later when we're actually creating our simulation. Uh, this is a code editor, so we have a full-blown editor here together with a whole series of functions that'll help us do things, but that's beyond the scope of this functional prototype. Okay, so we've accomplished everything. If we click on clean debris, we're going to go to the next step. Let's just see what this looks like. We're going to preview in browser, and what this will do is now the authoring tool will serve as a server, serve up the page to a browser. The browser will display our project. There we go. We're just loading up the page. And here's our title page, pool management, beautiful pool. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And we go to our first page, and there we are, page 2. Later on, we could totally get rid of these buttons here so that the only way to go from page to page is by branching. Okay, if we do like test water and all of this is wrong, right? But if we go ahead and if we go ahead and clean debris, it's our excellent first step, and it takes us to page 3, to the next step. And of course we haven't done anything here, so nothing will happen if we click on. Okay, so if we clean debris on page 3, let's just lighten up this water a little bit here, just to show that it is slightly cleaner. We'll go ahead and edit. Now I'll do that again just to, here's our graphic. Click on the graphic, click on edit. We can click, we could, for example, just change the opacity here to represent that it's getting a little better. We're not attracting people, so we haven't done much yet. So there we go. We got a slightly cleaner pool. And then in the test water now, what we'll do is we'll change what the feedback is here. So clean debris. We've already done that. So we're going to indicate that this is what happens when you select that button. We're going to give you some feedback. So you've already cleaned the debris. And we're not going to do anything. Okay, and then number 2, so testing water, this is great. So if we're testing the water, by the way, if we're testing water, which is the right step, we'll jump to page, and that'll be raising the pH. Okay. Actually, um, we won't be raising the pH because when we test the water, we'll understand that the pH level is sufficient. So really the right next step is to stabilize. We really didn't need to raise the pH page because it's not it's not a valid choice. So we want to jump to stabilize, which will be the next right step. Okay, so let's do that after 3 seconds, but we'll want to show that the pH level is 7.5, which is good. We'll just indicate good. Now, so therefore, we never do want to raise the pH. And we'll just say cyanuric acid is 20 parts per million, which is low. Okay, and that will mean that our next right step is to stabilize the pool. Okay, good. Then for our third option, we want to execute command, show feedback. So if you definitely have to test the water first before you decide that you're going to raise the pH. And for stabilizing the pool, again, test the water first. Copy that. And that would be also true of adding chlorine. So we'll go ahead, provide some feedback there. Okay, so the right decision here was to test the water, and so that is the beauty of a functional prototype here is we don't have to. Now if this were a full-blown simulation, we would just dynamically change the elements. We would change the color of the pool and so forth. But what we're doing instead is using a very simple technique. We're just jumping to a page, and that page will show the result of the decision. So that's what we're doing instead of programmatically changing those SVG elements. We're just cloning pages and we're jumping to them. So we're using one technique, which is jump to page. And then we're going to jump to the page that shows us the feedback, shows us the outcome or the result of our decision. So that is that next page, right? Because we're jumping, we're not doing raise pH, forget about that. We're stabilizing. Um, so we could actually get rid of this page. It's not doing anything for us because we'll never get here because it's never going to be the right decision. So we'll just get rid of raise pH and we'll go to stabilize here. And we'll indicate, we'll change the pool. So again, I'll click on that graphic and maybe let's give it maybe a real dark blue here. I don't know. That looks too nice of a pool. Let's see here. What else could we do? Make it a nice gray. a real light color gray. There, do something like that. Okay, and we haven't attracted people yet. So as a result of testing the water, this is a little gray. I mean, we haven't done anything. We're going to stabilize the pool at this step, but this is just showing that the effect of removing that debris is having some effect. And plus, when we selected test water and got to this page, I was just trying to give some positive feedback here. Okay, so now we're going to stabilize the pool. That's the right decision, and this is just reminding us of that. We're stabilizing the pool. We'll go ahead and click on the widget. So clean debris, no, we've already done that. So execute command. And then test water is always going to give us something. It's going to always give us some information. In this case, we'll just say the pH is 7.5. So nothing has changed. And this is just simply telling us, boy, that cyanuric acid is still really low. Okay. Raise pH. And this is absolutely the wrong step. No, the pH is adequate, is in the right level, is in the right range. So if we selected this is wrong, and this is telling us it's wrong. Stabilizing the pool, adding cyanuric acid is absolutely the right step. So we will want to jump to page, and we'll want to go to the next correct step, which is add chlorine. And here we can say excellent. Pool needed stabilization, which is a needed cyanuric acid. That was a good step. Good choice. And of course, want to go ahead and jump to that. Okay, and adding chlorine, no, better stabilize first. So execute command, show feedback. Terrific, we're done with that. Now we go to our next, and the right thing to do here is add chlorine. We'll give them some indication here. Maybe now kind of start switching to the blues. There we go. That'll work. And clean debris, so you know what the drill is now. What happens when you select, this is the branch option. Notice the little icon here, that means branch. What are we going to do? Well, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to tell them we have already cleaned the debris. And then here, test the water. So by this point now, the pH is the same, 7.5, and cyanuric acid, let's just say is, I don't know, 50 parts per million. So we've increased the cyanuric acid, and that's what this is telling us. So raise pH. No. Stabilize pool. We've already done that. So cyanuric acid is in the right range. Add chlorine. So again, this jogged our memory to say this is the right next step. And if we do that, we're going to jump to a page, the perfect pool. And we'll do that after 3 seconds, which takes us to that perfect pool. And so we've got to make it perfect. Let's go ahead and I don't know, what do we got here? Not green, it's not green. Opacity. Okay. And let's go ahead and clone our object here. This is indicating, now again we would do this programmatically. We would show, we would show this increase and decrease. Increase as the pool was kept in perfect shape, decrease if it started to get cloudy or if it started to darken or become in need of disinfecting. Okay, we're all good, and we'll go ahead and close that, save. So that's our perfect pool at this point. And we could go ahead and we could simply remove. So at the perfect, we could just simply cut it out because we've basically achieved what we wanted to do. So let's go ahead and try this and see what we get. So we're going to preview in the browser. And again, I'll mention this. This is the way it'll look like to the learner. This is the way it'll look like to the client, the person observing the functional prototype. So basically it's just throwing it up in a browser so that you can view it as you would the final product. We'll go ahead and later on we could disable these buttons, but here we are. Here's our choices, and we'll go ahead, clean debris. Excellent first step. That takes us to a slightly less dark pool. At this point we'll say test, no, we'll say stabilize pool, and it says test the water first. We'll test the water. 7.5, oh, low cyanuric acid. Okay, well, we didn't need to raise the pH, but we did need to do that. Excellent. So here, if we go ahead and choose this, we've already done that. We can test the water. All right. So we have a pH that's right. We have a cyanuric acid that's right. Our next choice would be to add chlorine. And that allows us to get to the perfect state. A pool that looks like it's inviting, and of course we have people in it and so forth. So what we're doing with this functional prototype is essentially we're showing how this is going to work. We're allowing you to see that the learner will make decisions and get feedback based on those decisions. And for the decisions, for us to see the outcome, the natural outcome, which is improving the state of the pool and attracting more visitors to the pool. So that essentially sums up what a functional prototype is all about. And one of the most important pieces to this is the fact that in your choices, in your branch options, the right branch option includes jumping to a page where you can just simply show, rather than programmatically creating the results, you can just simply show the results without having to do all the work that a simulation requires. So it allows you to very, very quickly gin this up so that you can put it in front of a client and says, this is our idea. This is what we want to do, is we want to create a kind of a realistic situation and give the learner choices and show them the outcomes of those choices. So that's a functional prototype. Until next time.